everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. The time is 11 a.m. This is our weekly Commissioner's Status Report. Welcome, everyone. Attending in person, Commissioners Duncan and Filios. Joining us by phone, Commissioner Bill Brooks. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Moving on. First item of business, general discussion. OEM update on the status of funding for the COVID response efforts. Bill?
I did not put this on, but maybe someone on knows about this and they can speak to it.
I do. Tiffany here.
Yeah, go right ahead, Tiffany.
Okay.
So the purpose of this item is because, as you guys are well aware, the funding from COVID ended on the 31st. Be that as it may, we are still getting requests for certain PPE items, especially gloves and procedure masks. As you're aware, a lot of the departments didn't budget for these expenses. We did purchase a back stock of some of these items when we did have COVID dollars. But moving forward, what we're looking for is direction from the board as to how we'd like to continue handling these. From our point of view, it makes sense for our office, OEM, to still kind of centralize these efforts here because we're able to be more competitive with pricing, and we've been surveying the departments for their needs. So we're not expecting these expenses to exceed $10,000 or so. But like the departments we're getting requests from is like the sheriff, district court, juvenile detention, elections. They're having a couple elections coming up and conducted in 70 precincts in March and May, and they're likely to need some of these personal protective equipment. So really the question is, we've had these conversations within the COVID task force group. We can continue to centralize those efforts here, but if we continue to use the EOC disaster budget, we would need to have our budget identified because we will likely go over budget. And if Dina's there, she can kind of speak to more of the budget side of things. But that's just a quick snapshot of what we're looking at, and we're just trying to get direction on how you'd like us to proceed for coordinating these efforts for the departments.
Sure. Dina, can you?
Do you want to comment?
So Tiffany pretty much covered where we're at right now. We know that there's no more COVID money to cover PPE, but we know that
I don't
this
think.
is going to go on.
Yeah, can you speak up?
Yeah, for the
okay.
people.
We know that we're
Okay.
not out of the COVID period yet, but this is the post-COVID funding period. So we can track those expenses, and I think Tiffany's absolutely right that tracking them through the EOC in that project, then we can
gonna
see
make it
how
easier.
much we're spending on PPE outside of the COVID period, because there may come a time when we need to report that to a government agency. But again, she'll probably go over budget. So she's just asking the board to cover her budget if she does go over.
Yeah, I think it makes most sense for her for it to be centralized because she is going to get the buying power and the best discount.
Right.
It's also going to be easier for you, I think, to track if it's a single entity
Absolutely.
versus multiple entities. I'm fine with it, Leslie.
Yeah, I'm fine too. It's just the money issue. I mean, I don't want to overbuy, not knowing, what the future holds. If, the vaccine is supposed to be solving these issues, then, I don't want to spend a bunch of money.
Tiffany, what do you have on? I don't need a complete inventory, but what do you have on hand? Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I'm absolutely all for this, but I want to know what kind of PPE we're talking about and how much. And I don't want to find 3 years worth of masks when this is all over in a box someplace.
Yeah, that's totally. Yeah, that's totally understandable. We've been doing a pretty good job. We've been sending out surveys to the departments to kind of track their PPE needs. The last one we sent out was around December for 6 months, so we're not looking any further than 6 months at a time. We do have masks here, and what we're doing is we're providing them with the backstock we have, and then we have a threshold for when we'll continue to make purchases. We're really not overbuying because, one, we don't want to be using the taxpayer dollars that way, but also because it's not responsible for us to hoard PPE either. So we're doing our best to keep that balance between having an inventory that can meet the needs of the county and looking towards the things we have upcoming, such as elections, where we'll need more. And then we're going and making purchases. And we have found that we're able to be more competitive and find lower prices when we're able to make bigger purchases, which I think is a benefit too, instead of having one-offs where departments are trying to buy more than they need. We can kind of centralize those efforts and provide it county-wide and have a centralized stock where they come to us first and we track, and then we'll make that threshold if we need to purchase more.
I'm fine.
Okay, I would suggest that we need to tell the departments not to do that and to go through your office. The other question I have is PPE primarily masks, or are there other significant items?
Primarily, what we're supplying is procedure masks and gloves. Gloves are really the hot ticket item right now that are actually pretty difficult to come by, but those are the two, gloves and masks.
Okay, that helps. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely in favor of this.
I'd also
Yeah,
like
I'm
to-
fine. So what, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dina.
I was just going to throw in, there could also be costs associated with maybe like fogging or cleaning an area if there's a particular hot spot or whatever. So that could be added as well.
Okay, so Tiffany, you're suggesting that this is not going to exceed $10,000?
Yeah, from the projections we have, we believe it would be under $10,000, but we wanted to stay kind of around that number just to be safe.
At what point is that going to put you over budget?
I can get back to you on that. I don't have that magic number in my head right now, but I can get back to you with that information.
Okay, so I guess my suggestion would be is bring this to a business meeting because it's financial. When you find that threshold that you know, like, okay, in 30 days, we're going to be over this amount kind of thing. And then that way we can get it on the record and ratify it.
That work for you?
So,
Okay.
can I clarify? Can I clarify real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what you're saying, Leslie, is to bring it to a business meeting when we feel we're at a point where we may go under budget? Over budget?
Yes.
Or-
Yes. So go ahead and
Okay.
continue the way you're doing. Get the word out to everybody that all PPE purchases go through you. And then that when you find out, like, you know, you gave the 6-month number, but you find out after 3 months, okay, we are now going to go over budget, then come to us then and do that.
Okay.
Got
perfect.
it?
Thank you.
Yeah, so while you're tracking, you're going to know when you're approaching your threshold. Does that work for you?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, good enough. You have consensus. Okay, second item. County property storm damage update. Leslie?
Yes, so I'll have Cecilia give us a brief update because I'm hoping by now all the damage has come to you, the reports.
For the record, Cecilia Sweet, HR Generalist Compliance, and it is still emerging, a discovery of damage, especially with parks and waterways and the fairgrounds. But this is what's been reported to me and ICRIMP so far. The airport had damage to rain gutters on their fabrication building. They're getting estimates. And of course, buildings and grounds had wind damage to the trees on the edge of the county parking lot that were in jeopardy of falling. And so that one was approximately $7,000. Parks and Waterways has reported the damage, boathouse roof and damage to steel pilings and a new log boom located on the Harrison breakwater. They are also going to continue going through all the other parks.
18
Yes.
locations.
Locations. Solid Waste had 2 employees that were parked in the employees' parking lot, and their cars, their personal cars, was hit with falling debris and tree branches. Took some significant damage, but they're not totaled. Also, fairgrounds probably had the most wide variety of damage. A lot of damage to their signage, especially around the bandstand. A roof on a horse barn lost a lot of shingles. and a shed and a restroom next to the horse barn had lifting damage to the sheet metal, a lot of damage to the cedar fence, fallen trees and branches that mostly the staff can clean up on their own. One of the trees barely missed the COVID-19 testing site, so we were very fortunate there. And Alexia is on the line if you wanted further clarity on the fairgrounds. And that's it.
We don't have a dollar estimate for that yet.
We do not.
We do not. Okay.
She's still getting estimates.
Okay.
But most of this is covered by iCrimp except for our deductible.
Exactly. And just, this was interesting, just a little backstory. Almost 5 years ago, we had the big windstorm of 2015.
November.
And yes, good memory. And that came to, the damage on that time was $24,279.82. So I'm kind of curious to see how we'll
this one-
fare.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would add to that too is that we discovered last week that we thought we were done with the Romer or the Hamilton house, right? But turns out there were 5 trees, and what we weren't sure that were leaning, dangerously leaning toward the structure. We weren't sure whether it was on what is now their property or our parking lot. Anyway, so almost immediately, was it Tim who went out?
Rod Jones?
Well, no, Rod went out to survey, but before that, to rope off the area.
Oh, I don't know if it was,
Somebody from buildings, and one of our guys went out anyway, roped off the area, so employees wouldn't park there the next day. And then we learned when Rod Jones went out, the surveyor, that those trees were in fact on our lot. And they were removed over the weekend, and the estimate was $7,000, which really isn't bad for 5 trees. But anyway, they paid, and we'll have to reimburse them.
but
that's
that'll
where
be
we are.
submitted through iCrimp as
Yeah,
well.
right.
Have we checked the boathouses? Has the sheriff's office checked the boathouses?
The one of them is missing roof, a nice significant portion of roof.
Which one?
The one that has the fireboat in it.
Okay, because the last windstorm almost totaled the boathouse in Post Falls. And then the other one had significant damage from the doors and stuff, and the fairgrounds just got pounded, so I'm just curious if the stuff that we fixed from 2015 held, but now there's new damage, it sounds like, so.
You're right, I don't know if all the boathouses
I'm
have been
just,
checked.
yeah, I'm just saying that you might want to ask the sheriff to send somebody down to check all the boathouses.
I'm sure Parks and Waterways is on it, and
Well,
along with,
but the boathouse in Templins has nothing to do with Nick.
okay, well, we'll check into
So we'll
it.
get the sheriff to go down, take a look at it. Okay, thank you, Sean. Is that it? Thanks, Cecilia, but yeah. Okay, next item. Attorney Center, option 5. Leslie?
Yeah, so since we kind of settled on a number last week, we've gotten a couple different options to do that number. But it's becoming clear to me that we're gonna have to decide if we're going to build not getting what we actually need because of the money situation, or if we're going to have to go for more money. So that's kind of the crux of where we're at. So pretty much, option 5 and 6 is still not everything we need to probably get us 20 years down the road. So we just have to decide, are we just gonna build for today and get the major things done? Or are we going to build for the future? And not the future like 2040, like option 1, but the future just as in, if BOCC moves, then that means HR expands, IT expands, community development can expand. If BOCC doesn't move, as in option 5 and 6, then, you know, those moves won't happen either. So still a lot to think about, I think, at this point, because it's just really a huge price tag, probably the biggest thing that the county's ever done. And I just want to make sure we do it right.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think did you want to say something, Sean?
Yeah, I just to call notice to 5 and 6, the FF&E is taken out. And so really what that means basically is when a building is done, you're gonna have to come up with that 500 and 600,000 and some change.
For fixtures and
For
furniture.
fixtures, furniture, and
Oh, oh,
equipment.
oh, oh, okay.
So, you know, to me, you're looking at 5, which is 18 and some change. FF&E takes it over that. And then the other one is right at 18, and FF&E is gonna take it over that. So, that, you know, it's a hard fixed cost that's gonna be hanging over your head the entire time. And then, you know, you're gonna have, if the FF&E is not included, then most likely you're going to have to take charge of, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but, you know, the interior design and all the stuff that would come with that. So there are some different things in 5 and 6. I just wanted to explain them to you. The other thing is, when you're sitting right on the cusp of what you have to spend, it makes it really hard to get that project kept under budget, because you're right at the threshold right off the bat. So just a couple things to consider. I mean, I'll just leave it at that.
Ken, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think the important thing for the county is to really kind of define who and what is going to go into the building, because that's really going to set the scope for us going forward, knowing which departments we need to sit down with and start lining out their spaces, putting them on paper. So that's kind of an unknown at the moment. I know there's a number of different departments that are going to move around, you know, in phasing from one spot to another. It sounds like the county needs to decide who and when is going where, so they kind of define who's going into the new building, because that's really the kind of crux of this whole building and the cost is what actually are you going to put in it.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, Ken, and what we need to consider, and, you know, we raised this last week, is we have to include the KEC building in the plans, because when that becomes vacant, it's going to be roughly around the same time that anything we build would be completed, although actually we might be building sooner than the availability of that house, because that's, the KEC building, because that's also going to depend on what KEC is able to find and how long it takes them to get moving. But the point is that if we can free up space here and in any of our other buildings that we can locate or relocate organizations into, and at the same time be able to potentially sell other structures if that's an option, then that helps us in the financing of the new building. But that's why we have to look at this, to use a term, holistically, which is to look at the broad spectrum, and then that'll help us make this decision.
I just, going back to that, who could move here, and then would you refit this for courtrooms or for prosecutor? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, are we going to put justice in this building if some people in this building move to KEC?
That's a possibility. Prosecutor's another possibility. I think what we have to assume as fixed is that the new courtrooms, new building. Public defender, new building.
Correct.
When it comes to the other groups, I think that's where we have to consider what kind of space is being freed up, who can go to KEC, and who can come in here. Yeah, go right ahead, Russ.
Can you, microphone, sorry.
So I think you're totally right. You have to look at this building too.
Who's speaking, please?
This is Corey Trapp.
Yeah,
with,
it's
Longwell
Corey
Trapp.
Trapp from,
Longwell.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
Bill.
thank you. Thank you.
So, you know, and I'm real familiar with the Kootenai Electric building. I've been doing remodels out there for the last
Okay, good.
10, 15 years. So I know what the spaces are and what we've added on to that building. We could, and with Ken's help and my help, we can sit down and look globally at your spaces too. It was mentioned last week about the possibility of moving community development out there. Well, that opens up a ton of space in this building.
Precisely.
That we could shuffle some people around. You know, so we need to look at that globally. I think you hit the nail on the head. You've got to do the new courtrooms, and you have to do
Public
a
defender.
public defender, and then we can work out the other spaces from that too. I think that's kind of the next step that needs to happen.
Okay.
Right.
Are we okay for now?
Well, I mean, what we're not okay with is LCA doing a bunch of work and not being under contract. So we need to get to a point where we can make a decision.
Okay, so when do we need to, go ahead, Sean.
Here's what I think you need to do. I know it's not what everybody probably wants to hear. It really, at this point, doesn't matter if you're gonna spend 18 or 26. You have to have a number so that if you decide that you want to spend the 26 million for option 2, then Ken can adjust his contract accordingly. Every time the amount changes, he's readjusting, because we're not going to let him charge for a $20 million building when it's only
Right.
18. So we can't get him under contract. I mean, everything is hinging on that one thing, the number.
Okay, so if,
Because you can't do the CMGC until
Right.
you have the number, and then you decide to go in. Now, in my opinion,
yes, go ahead.
if you're gonna do it, then do it right and get everything you need. Because if you're gonna add on to your house and it's gonna cost $50,000, I'm not taking all of my cash reserves and everything I've saved for a rainy day and trying to add on to that, and then trying to shove in a master bedroom that doesn't even call in the plan. So to me, if you can set the number, if you can agree on that, then we could work with Steve to try to find funding options. Because in the way things are right now, in the economy and the election and everything else, to go into this with no money in the bank 3 years from now, and it's gonna just start chipping away. You're just gonna see it walking away, and you're gonna have to pay back the enterprise that you're gonna borrow. So I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's the reality of the situation. Is if you build anything that doesn't work for you, okay, you're not going to have the money down the road to do anything different.
Right.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. So, for instance, you know, shell out this, future TI, shell out that, future TI. You're probably not going to have the money to finish that TI. It's still costing you. You know, the only thing that's in place is just the shell. Still got to sheetrock it, wire it, finish the plumbing, flooring, FF&E, all that stuff. So that's why.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying what I'm
No,
saying.
and I think your point is well taken, but, okay, so last week, I think it was last week, we decided on a ceiling of $18 million.
Correct.
Okay, now, what is to say that in April, and I'm saying April, because that's the conclusion of of this legislative session, right? Where we
Yes.
get to see what's going on, that we can amend that. It isn't that we can't go to 30 million. It isn't that it's going to kill the county. It's not going to kill the county.
Right.
The question, and we know that, and I think the treasurer's even said that. But is it wise? That's a whole different matter, okay?
Right.
Exactly. Is it feasible? So the whole point is this. We've got 18 million bucks. In April, the legislature is ended. We're going to have an idea what our taxing authority is, what kind of capabilities we have, and we can amend at that point.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So is that,
I think you can do that. You would have to amend your contract. And it would have, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but it would have bearing on your CMGC. And
Right.
when
So-
you get that out. But if Ken is saying, that, and I don't know, Ken, you can answer this question. Can you wait until April to do the CMGC? And then, obviously, his contract could be amended. If you guys hire him for 18 and it goes to 26, then that's fine. I'm just not sure if you're gonna start working on the design of an $18 million building, and then all of a sudden you decide to go to 26, that changes everything that he's been doing for 3
Correct.
months.
so Ken,
Chris, I'd like to say
Yeah,
something.
yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I have a real problem. I think Ken hit it right on the nose. Who's going where, and when are they going? And until we know that information, any discussion of amounts, whether it's 17 million or 18 million or 26 million, very premature. And I'm not willing to vote for anything until I see where various departments are scheduled to go and how much their space needs are.
Sean, go ahead. Go ahead, speak your mind.
Is formulating.
I'm formulating here.
So,
Okay,
well,
so
okay,
here's the thing, It doesn't matter who goes where now. That's of no importance. The first thing that has to happen is a budget. That's the very first thing that has to happen because you don't have, your architect is not even under contract right now.
Right,
So before we all know who needs to go to this building.
right.
You got 3 or 4 years to figure out who's going to KEC because the people that are going to this building cannot go to KEC.
Correct.
So for me, that is just a footnote that can be dealt with at a later time. We set a plan in place. This move makes these 2 moves, and then this move makes those 2 moves. So there's lots of different plans and lots of different ways that you can do this, but we really need to try to say, is it 18 and maybe it goes to 26 later or something to get them under contract and moving forward with what needs to get started, because it's just, as you wait and time goes on, construction costs continue to rise.
Right.
So the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you.
So what do you recommend?
A budget number. I know
So-
that that's not what Bill wants to hear, and I'm sorry, but we can't do anything without a number.
Okay, so based on option 6, AMP in the building, public defender in the building, and then we have our courtrooms in the building, which we need to talk about,
And it's-
that large courtroom versus,
Right.
something else. So then that option 6 is where we can start. Then as we find out what the legislature's gonna do, then we can decide if this building's gonna house prosecutor and BOCC. Because really, those are the only 2 that option 6 does not address. I mean, that we started off with prosecutor, public defender, BOCC, AMP, courtrooms.
Right.
So that's what we started with. So with our budget, then it looks like that BOCC doesn't go and that prosecutor doesn't go unless legislature, makes things a little bit easier. So at this point, I think I'm comfortable just going forward with the 18 million, with Ken understanding that come April, things can change. And we just don't know. We could know before then, but the latest we'll know is the beginning of April.
Okay. Ken, are you
And I
fine?
am not comfortable going forward with anything until we know what the legislature is going to do.
Well, and I think that's what Leslie just indicated. I think that's what we're all saying. And the legislature on the whole tax situation may come up with a decision in 30 or 45 days. That might be one of their first. But they're looking at a number of different things. One of them, for example, is the URDs. Are they going to cut back contributions to URDs? We know we've got about $3.5 million in URD money that's coming in this year, closures. But if going forward, looks like it's going to continue for us, or that our contribution to URDs is diminished, now when we revisit this, maybe we go to 23. Now, I know Bill's probably having a fit as I say that, but to your point, and I think you're right, Sean, either we're going to do this right, or we're going to be doing it again or trying to expand again later, and the cost is going to be that much higher.
And I think that when, I really think that when you're done with that, you're going to wish you would have done something different.
But I think that's hindsight.
But
That's with every
I-
decision we make in the seat.
I understand that, but I'm just, because, I'm not saying that there would be bad decisions made, but you're gonna spend a lot of money and there just may not be a lot of money left over for shelled space and stuff. That's all I'm trying to say. But I'm fine with 18. I have a contract already signed by LCA for 18.
But we could still get a loan for that. We don't have to use our cash reserves. So if that's where
Right.
you're holed up, then just so you know, that we can.
No,
still-
I'm not held up on that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just trying to give you your options of what they would be and what
Sure.
I think that I would do. So I can get a contract to legal's already looked at it. So I can have his contract next Tuesday.
Right.
So it's my understanding then that you want option 6 and your ceiling is 18 million, is that correct?
Today, until we
Today,
know more.
today.
Now, this also gives us a chance to figure out who goes to KEC and if any other adjustments can be made
Right,
here.
right.
So
You
then.
could move
Okay, but
elections
that's
to
only two of the,
KEC and sell
that's only
Third
two of the
Street.
three commissioners agreeing to that, because I do not agree to that.
Say that again, Bill, please.
I said, that's only, everybody's saying, we're comfortable with that. No, I'm not comfortable. That's what I've been saying. I'm not comfortable with 18 million or anything else, to move forward with anything until we know what the legislature's gonna do. And until we can explain in such a way that if we were to, propose a general obligation bond, which I'm not suggesting we have to do, but we are able to talk to the people or explain our thinking and get a good response. Because just saying, oh, we need to do it because we need to do it because it'll cost more later is not a good rationale.
Thank you, Bill. Actually, that is something that's been on my mind. I am considering language, and I was going to have a rough draft before I brought it up, about going to the public and asking them about the different funding options for this building and starting that public input. I actually have a meeting next month with some community groups to talk about the money and this building. So I think that you're absolutely on the right track. And my question to Ken is, Ken, if we go ahead and sign this contract and we end up not building a building, you're going to be paid for everything you've done. But what does that mean? I mean, do we owe you for the whole 18 million, or we just owe you for work done? Because honestly, the legislature can do some pretty devastating things to our funding source to pay back a loan or to replenish our savings. So we have to be very cognizant of that. And if we have to put the brakes on and pay you for what you've done now and just go dark for a few months, we can do that too. So we're trying to really keep about a dozen balls in the air right now. We know we have needs, and the next item we have, is going to potentially address one of those needs. But Ken, how do you feel about that? Would you rather sign a contract going forward, understanding what the April may bring, or do you want to get paid for what you've done and then just wait?
So this is Ken. So our contract right now is broken out into two phases. Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 2 being the construction of the actual building, and that fee is based on a percentage of the construction cost, whatever that is at the time. Phase 1 is for all of the programming and schematic design of a building, to where we would get to floor plans and concept elevations of the building. After that Phase 1, in the middle of Phase 1, I think is probably a good time to bring in a CMGC when we have floor plans and spaces laid out in that building, because then they're going to be able to look at that and help us go through costs and narrow down that cost to what the actual construction cost is going to be. So as far as
Ken,
our contract goes,
Ken, could you explain what's, for people listening, what
CMGC, yeah.
Yeah. The CMGC is Construction Manager General Contractor. Basically, it's a
good.
design,
Thank
kind
you.
of a design build process.
Project manager.
Where the construction company that's going to build the building is selected amongst a pool of contractors ahead of construction during design, to be able to help that architect and the design team go through different options and be able to weigh different costs of things, because they have a good idea of cost of materials and local labor rates and things like that.
Sure,
help
very
narrow
good.
down
I
costs.
appreciate the explanation.
Okay, so Ken, this is Chris. So when are you thinking you're going to be into the middle of, I think you're referring to the middle of Phase 1 with the layout? When would you anticipate that would occur?
Right. So let's say that we go off of option 6, okay, where we have pretty much everything in the building except for the prosecutor and the commissioner. So we can start meeting with those departments as early as, next week or within the next 2 weeks to sit down and go through their space and lay it down on paper. We've already done their space needs, and now we need to start laying out floor plans to kind of get conceptual plans for the building. And that process will probably go on for probably a couple months to where we can narrow it down. After that, you should be able to know from the legislature comes back if there's additional funding, and if you're able to add the prosecutor into the courthouse or into the new building, which means they need to take an entire floor themselves, which makes our building, 1 floor bigger. And then obviously that cost goes up. And it's roughly, based on our spreadsheets, around $2 million, for each the prosecutor and the public defender, their floors to be fully built out, about $2 million each. So at the end of that legislation meeting, you know that you've got, additional monies, that additional floor for the prosecutor, is easily slipped into that building floor plate. The building cost obviously goes up. Start laying out the floor plans with the
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is we can, now please correct me if I'm wrong, that we can execute an agreement next week, and we can make whatever amendments are necessary, because as LCA proceeds with what they're doing and potentially gets a CMGC on board, we still have time, given what the legislature is doing, to make the necessary amendments. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
We may have to go higher. I agree with you, Sean. I don't want to cut this thing short and have to be doing it again. But anyway, but I think also we need to consider KEC. We have to put some stakes in the ground that say these groups are moving when that time arrives, and so that we can make whatever other adjustments can be made, and to be able to accommodate what's going to serve us for the next maybe 15 or 20 years. So, we okay?
Yes.
Okay, we're okay. Can we move on?
18 and option 6.
Corey, are you okay? Bill?
I'm okay. That sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Can we move on now? Thank you, everyone. Okay. Public defender space. And I'm ready to start drinking.
Okay, so this was actually kind of mine and Sean's brainstorm, or maybe my crazy idea if he doesn't want to take any blame for it. So, in the past, we've kind of wasted some time looking for additional space. In my mind, I don't think Anne can wait 3 years. So what I would like to do, and her lease is up this year, what I'd like to do is do a request for proposal for office space and let people come to us. So publish it. Sean and I'll work with Anne to get all of the exact specifications, how many offices, what square footage, and proximity to downtown. Because to Chris's point that he brings up quite a bit, that commercial space is not really in demand right now. And with the working from home and all the electronic technology that's been happening during the events of the last year, we may be able to find something that she can live with for 3 years and get a little breathing space until the building is built. And, worst case scenario, if we don't end up building the building, then at least she hasn't been in a sardine can for 3 years. So with your guys' blessing, I would like to go forward and examine that and take it through legal and look at that.
I'm fine with it. Bill?
I think that I'm fine with that as long as no commitments are made without the entire board's.
Well, yeah, that's always the case.
Yeah, it'll be a process where we open the bids at a business meeting and all that.
Right, and the other thought I had, because we've talked about community development moving up to KEC, and David Callahan doesn't seem to have a problem. They've allocated, they have space available for us that we can configure into cubicles. Now, I don't know how many people you want to take a stab at it? Can we free up space for Ann here?
Well, here's a thought that just came to me. If David does, okay, so in option 6, you're gonna put the public defender in 12,000 square feet. Probably not big enough in 3 years. Maybe, maybe not. But if community development goes to KEC, there's no reason why they couldn't take that space. There's no reason why. You've got enough offices over there, and you've got some cubicles that you can take down for open areas that they like to have. So yeah, that's a perfect
The
idea.
point that I'm trying to make is David has a number of folks currently working from home. I don't know what that number is, okay? He's got others that are here. Most of the work, most of the growth in this county is up north. West and north, but primarily up north. Right. If we can relocate in the near future, like within months, David's group up to that space, I don't know if it's feasible. I don't know if it's doable. We'd have to talk to him and talk to KEC. I'm sorry?
Yeah, the
there's-
space they offered us is very minimal.
I
Yeah,
don't-
there's not much room in there. They're pretty much plugged up. I'm trying to, as you're talking, I'm trying to picture what they may have offered.
Probably not more than a dozen people, huh?
That would be a lot.
No, you don't think so, Corey?
I don't even think there's enough room for that, honestly. I mean, they're plugged.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Proceed.
Yep.
Okay, just a thought. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we're ready, okay, so
So
we're done with item 4.
Are we done with that, or are we
Yeah,
gonna?
so
okay.
we're gonna work with Ann, and we're gonna get that RFP out, and just by some miracle, something hopefully's walking distance would be perfect, but, you know, we'll take a couple miles. I
Where are
suppose.
you now? You're at 9,600 square feet right now, Ann, is that right?
Yeah. It's,
a bottom floor that's all storage now, that's not really a place where we put offices. If we're at 9,600, if I had usable space for human beings for all of that, I can make that work easily right now.
Okay, so we'll look between 10 and 12,000.
10 and 12,000, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so okay, so that ends item number 4, which was public defender space. Moving on to our pending item status review, which is relatively brief. Okay, Citizen Advisory Committee. Bill, is that still on?
It's on, but it's also on hold because there's a few other things coming up that I'm working on.
Okay, so can I ask a question here? So Citizen Advisory Committee is different than the County Government Committee, so should we add that with it or alongside of it?
Yeah, how do you want to handle
No.
that, Bill?
No, let's not confuse the two. The Citizens Advisory Committee was brought before the board as a committee that would talk about things that we could do to streamline our operations at the county. That's all it is. The commission to study the form of county government is a completely different animal, and they should not be commingled, confused, or conflated.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess I was wrong about Citizen Advisory Committee, because I thought that was, they were gonna look at all the ordinances to determine if we had some ordinances that could be done away with because they were outdated or obsolete or not necessary.
Yes, that's part of streamlining the existent county government.
Okay, so while we're on that, do you want us to add the study or the commission recruiting, I guess, would be for the alternative form of government? Or-
Yeah, as a separate item, but first
Yes.
I've got to get to you, which I intend to do by the end of this week, a first draft of the bylaws. And once we do that and can agree on that, then I think we need to move forward to how do we appoint members to this 9-person committee. And my recommendation is commissioners each pick 3 and be done with it.
Okay,
But we can do that.
so why don't we do this then?
Yeah, fine.
Let's add that
Go
to the
ahead.
pending items. Okay, so we'll call it
Okay.
alternative form of government, unless you have another name for it. And we'll say
No,
that,
that's fine.
okay, that the bylaws, the action item would be that the bylaws, as you indicated, you're going to provide by the end of this week?
I'd say end of the month.
Okay, bylaws by end of the month, and those bylaws determine how the presumably 9-member commission would function, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
All right then. Okay, so moving on. Facilities expansion, we've pretty much already.
Beat that one.
Yeah, beat that horse hard.
Pack airport lease?
Yep, just waiting for Wally to return my call. I'm trying to touch base with him once a month to just figure out where they're at.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, 1A and B, that's this room, audio upgrade.
Okay.
Okay, is that with Josh? Okay, thank you. And the last one is financial snapshot. Dina,
Yeah.
did you want to say something on
It's-
that?
she'll
We
be-
went over that last week.
Yeah, first of every month. Yeah, so first status update of every month.
Got it.
We'll get it.
That's right, we decided on that. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
We've got some public here.
Public comment, come on up.
So, have you guys considered asking for donations for the PPE? Or is it that stretched of a budget? Because if you said the sheriff needed gloves and masks, I bet you'd get a lot of donations. Not
there's a-
necessarily the cloth kind, but
Yeah.
I think
that's,
people would be happy to donate. You said for county employees, it just doesn't have the oomph.
Right.
That maybe the
Right.
sheriff would, where they're like, yeah, you need gloves even normally.
Sure. We can talk to Tiffany about that.
It's just a way for the show community support.
And maybe put something out on Facebook
Yeah,
for people who want to donate?
yeah. I mean, if they have the money, why not?
Okay, good
Run out Walgreens and Walmart, but
good
I think it's
idea.
worth it.
Thank you.
Okay, with the attorney center and the public defender thing, and I'm gonna I may re-ask a question I've asked in previous months. I know we need to expand stuff. Is this the mandates from the state that are required, but then they don't fund them, and that's why we're in the kerfuddle?
Well, yes and no. So I can answer, yeah, it's a tough question. So I can answer, yes, the state mandated we have more public defenders.
Right,
The
and you
state
said that before, yeah.
And the state gave us 2 new judges.
Yeah,
Yes, so that is correct. We have more bodies and no space.
because I'm just thinking from, you know, a citizen point of view, it's expanding government. And then the other thing that immediately popped to mind, why are we expanding this when courts aren't open in person? Are they open in person to some extent? Because I know there's no jury trials until March, but I don't know if they're having like
Yes, there's.
smaller stuff.
There is. There's absolutely, they're handling in custodies. They're handling adoptions, termination of parental rights. There's a bunch of stuff that has been handled this whole time.
You guys might want to make people aware of that, because I'm just thinking in terms of optics and asking for a building.
Right.
Me and a lot of other people have the impression that no justice is going on, no legal stuff going on.
Right.
And then you ask for a building, and everybody be like, why, nothing's been happening? You'll be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a post-COVID environment.
Yeah.
Right, and we don't, and that is one of my angst, absolutely, is like, I don't want to build out for 40 years. I don't even want to build out for 20 years, because we have no idea what life is going to look like going forward. We just don't.
Right.
And with the KEC's, the Kootenai building, 15th?
No, Hayden, it's on
Okay,
on
I keep thinking
Dakota.
of the-
It's
okay,
on
Dakota in Hayden,
okay. So you guys can't move in until they move out?
correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
that's
And
the
he mentioned
agreement.
something, he kept saying TI a couple times. What is
Okay, so that is tenant improvement. That's where you build
Okay.
a shell and there's nothing. And it's like an unfinished basement is
Okay.
what it is. So you have to go down and do the electrical, plumbing, the,
He seemed very upset over that. And I'm like, you're using an abbreviation, I don't know.
yeah, sorry, tenant improvement.
And my concern with that building is if people think the courts aren't in session, which I guess they are, just not jury trials, and you have to do a bond, I think it would sink like the vehicle registration up
Right.
it did. If people don't want more money out of their pocket more than they want common sense, and even I voted no on the vehicle registration thing because it was too vague. You'd have to be very, very specific to really get,
Sure.
you know, get people to vote for it.
You made an interesting comment. When we talk about expanding government, if you
Yeah.
look at our expansion, it's well below the percentage of expansion of the
growth.
population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and we watch that very, very carefully. So people say, well, can you shrink government? Well, okay, but can we shrink the in-migration? That's tough to do. So what we try to do is balance it in such a way that we're not growing government at the same rate that we're growing population.
And that may be something to just maybe put something out more often and
Yes.
public on that, because
Yes.
That's not my perception. I mean, occasionally I go, no, that makes sense, and I know why, but I know a lot of other people don't. So for me, you may wanna start now and change that perception and maybe compare yourself to other counties.
Yeah.
Probably not Ada, but
Nancy?
Yeah, and that's actually if you go on our website.
Yeah.
And you go into, there are a number of tabs. One of them is Key Performance Indicators. Click that on, and that'll show you probably, there's 24 different indicators that show how we rank, not only against other counties, but even other cities in the state, for taxation, for population growth, for different metrics, crime, and you can pretty much get a broad snapshot. And Nancy actually assembled that, and how often
that
do
be
you update?
moved, that might need to be moved more to the front. I know that elections.
It's on the
kinda
landing
moves around.
page, isn't
Okay,
it?
it's on the landing page?
Key performance, or maybe, is it under KPI?
And that might be something to do some social media posts
Yeah.
about,
Right.
because I wasn't aware of that, but
The other thing too, to your point, is we're gonna start doing some town meetings, and one of the key, if not maybe the first topic, is gonna be growth. And it's really fascinating when you get into growth, because now you get into, I'm glad you brought this up.
yeah.
The balance between property rights, and let me tell you, we have folks saying, stop,
Right.
moratorium, stop. Well,
That's
guess
not
what?
realistic,
There you
yeah.
go, okay? And what people, a moratorium, guess what? State law, 6 months max. And there's gotta be, what do we say, impending harm?
Yeah.
And these are things people don't understand. So then you go to the other side, right, and you have the individual who says, well, I want to subdivide my 20 acres into 4/5s for my kids and my grandchildren. Okay, thank you. And he does, and she does, and she does, and everybody's adding to this, and they're only looking at their small piece. We have to look at the aggregate and say, well, wait a minute, you don't want to, let's take the $50 fee or whatever it is to beef up the infrastructure, but at the same time, you want to burden that infrastructure by subdividing. So how do we balance? I guess that's the
Or
thing.
like that one meeting I watched online with you guys owned part of the road, the road argument with the county employee. And so to me too, with that, it's just, you got some of that weird stuff where people wanna subdivide, but not,
Right,
you don't know that you don't own your road too, and we gotta be careful of
Right,
that, 'cause
right.
that's not right for a family would know, but if for a developer to come in and you think the county's maintaining
Right.
the road, you guys are like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And that
So
causes
anyway,
just
yeah.
emotions.
but check those out. Check out the key performance indicators.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, because I didn't know about that, because I think that'll help, but you guys
yeah,
need to
oh, yeah.
get that out there, because I think that'll help, because otherwise people are like, too much government, too much growth.
Well, you know, and it's fascinating too, because if you, let's say, compare us to Bonner County as an example. Okay, so we have, we're pushing about 170,000 people in the county. They're running about 45,000, so they're at about 28%. Okay? Now, look at budget. We're at about 100 million. It's, I think, 98.9 this year. They're at about 60. So they have 28% of our population, but they have 60% of our budget.
Yeah.
Now, there are factors that go into that, but if you compare us just to them, we're actually more efficient. And when you look at the indicators, you're gonna see that we're probably running more efficiently than most counties.
But the issue
Okay.
is, public defense is public defense.
There you
And-
go.
And that's what, justice is driving this, and we just have more arrests, more cases, and the justice system is
Population.
burdened.
But you guys need to get out that the courts are actually open, 'cause
Yeah.
I was under the impression it was all Zoom, and then I'm thinking, why do we need a new building if it's Zoom? And that's,
Right.
Okay.
Good points.
I think Sandy wants to-
Come on up, Sandy. Thank you, Summer.
Sandy White from Hayden. So I'd like to address the status of the Panhandle Health District
Yes.
situation. And we haven't heard it discussed in a while, so I was just wondering what your thoughts are on replacing the 2 board members that represent Kootenai County. So for the record, I'd like to hear from each of you your thoughts on this.
Who wants to go first? Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one that comes up for expiration is Jay Nelson. Her term is up in June. Speaking for myself, I can't speak for Leslie and Bill. I'll take it up at that time. Dr. McClandress is not expiring, I think, I'm not sure now, for another year. okay? But at this point, the one that I'm looking at is the one that's coming up for expiration. Beyond that, I can't really say any more at this point, because the other thing is, we don't know who's applying. Because what happens historically, Sandy, is when we make these appointments, we don't get a host of applications. Typically, we'll get one person who might have served for years, or maybe somebody else comes up, and that's the only one that's coming forward. Now, of course, because it's a hot item because of the masking, now everybody's, a lot of folks are charged up about it, but those are just my thoughts. Leslie, Bill? Bill?
Well, I want to take it up not now, but in June, and I've already expressed my opinion that we need to have an elected person in that slot. And I would like to see somebody from the county do it, and if nobody else will do it who's elected, I will volunteer to do it.
You heard it, Sandy?
I heard it, for the record. Okay.
And I'm willing to visit it anytime I have a second.
Okay. And this is the first I've heard that there's like an application process for that. Is that a public knowledge? Because I have.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, so how does
yeah.
someone apply for it, and what are the parameters? Yeah.
I'm not sure, but when we get to that point, it'll be made public, and I don't know, have you ever seen the application?
I never knew that there was any application for the Panhandle Board.
When we say
just always-
application, people can come forward and apply. I don't think we have a formal application like we do for the other advisory boards. At least I've not seen one. So what will happen this year, because it's so prominent, I guess we'll have to come up with something so that people are aware and can apply.
Submit your resume.
Yeah. So, yeah, because it'd be nice to know what the requirements are, or
Yeah, 'cause
the
normally
qualifications and.
Normally what
Things like that.
happens is the county commissioners of in this case, the 5 northern counties, each nominate someone. And because there's been a shortage of people that have wanted to do this in the past, somebody would step forward and presumably get nominated. This year, we're going to have to do it differently.
Also, since it's coming up in June, should we think about it sooner to have someone like in the chute to be ready or whatever?
I mean, that's up to the public, really.
I'm
we'll
the public.
announce it.
I'm the public. Let's do it now.
We'll announce it, yes.
Okay. Nancy? That is
Yeah,
correct.
thank you for that.
Yeah, so I would say first week of April, I will put it in my file to address how we're going to go forward, because we'll know what the legislation has done by then, and we'll see.
Another, just a little thing is I don't feel listened to by them, because I write and I call and I go, and
You
I
mean the
get-
legislators?
No, the Panhandle
Panhandle
Health.
Board.
They never respond. It's just, we're not represented as the public, as the people. Our voices are not heard. When they have a meeting, the only ones they have in the meeting are on the pro-mask,
Okay.
tracing side. They have no other voice.
Bill, do you want to take note of that since you're the liaison?
Yes.
Yeah, Bill's our liaison to
Okay.
Panhandle Health. Keep going.
Yeah, because we're always stuck outside in the cold when they're inside having their meetings.
Okay, so to Nancy's point about the potential changes, one of the proposals that I heard, and I don't know if this is actually going to come up, this is before they went into session when we had lunch with them, is they want to remove the ability for the health districts to issue the mandate. So basically what they would say, what would happen potentially is that the health district might make a recommendation, then it would come to us. We, if that passes, would have the authority to issue the mandate.
No.
Okay? Not the health district,
So-
if that passes.
It's one of those things where, yes, you want an elected official on the board, but we are involved in so many things that being able to appoint somebody is helpful, as long as the commissioners are the one deciding the mandates, deciding anything that needs to be made law. And so that, while, I don't know, best case scenario would be that everybody on the board was elected. it's not really practical in a county our size. And so I'm glad to hear Bill say that he would step up. But if the legislature makes that law where the county has to agree with that or put it into effect, then I would be okay with non-elected people serving there as long as, this board appoints them.
And right now, currently, go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just as long as it comes before, in one way or the other, people who are elected. I do not like Panhandle Health mandating anything for Kootenai County when there's a mandate, they say Panhandle Health District-wide mandate. No, I want the option of being able to say, no, Kootenai County doesn't agree with that, or we do agree with that. So,
Correct.
very
Okay.
important.
So what I think what I'm hearing you say is, and maybe you're agreeing with Leslie, is that you don't necessarily have a problem, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, with us appointing someone to the board as long as the decision as to whether or not to issue a mandate rests with us. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, but that would, my understanding is that has to come from the legislature. And,
Well, yeah, that's true,
We can't
yeah.
decide that.
Yeah, they're the ones that are gonna make
Okay,
that
just so-
decision.
Just so people understand that.
Yeah, currently,
As long as we have some control over what we're doing.
understood.
Correct.
So currently, our two representatives are the only two, to the best of my knowledge, in this health district with medical backgrounds. The others do not have medical backgrounds. So that's, if you read the current statute, it says that, and I want to be careful I don't misstate it, but it says that you should have representatives or board members that either have the background or a demonstrated, how do I put this to you, involvement in the medical field. You can look it up. It's in
Or a
there.
consultant.
Yeah, it could be.
I think a
It could
consultant
be.
is also on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, okay, they have a meeting coming up next week, and then they don't meet again till March. So if we could get this mask mandate to be a voluntary thing.
And I
at
think
their
you might
next
see that
meeting.
because more and more people are getting vaccinated.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate
You're
it, guys.
welcome.
Thanks, Sandy.
Anything else? Okay, so the time is now 12:04 PM. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.